panelists here? Are the panelists present here? Let me call out the names. The panel members we have as a moderator, Dr. Niladri Chaudhary, CEO of Excellentro. We have David Knox as one of the panelists. Is he here? David, can we have you on stage, please? Thank you so much. Kavita, please, from JFrog. Megha. Yeah, yes. Megha Sham and Ronak. Yes, thank you so much. We also have Bhagyesh from Citibank. Yes. Okay, so without much ado, we'll start off. So I would request each of the panel members to introduce yourself, your name, your designation, and your organization. Oh, okay, you have.
David Knox is my name. I'm the channel manager across Southeast Asia for GitLab. I manage AWS and GCP.
Hi, I'm Kavita Vishwanath. I'm the Regional Vice President for JFrog in Asia Pacific. Great to be here and meeting everyone from the community. Thank you.
Hello. Hi. Good evening, everyone. My name is Shyam. I have 21 years of experience in the industry. I'm working as a principal consultant in iCompass in the area of platform engineering and DevSecOps. Thank you.
Okay, hi everyone, my name is Ronak. I'm DevOps practice lead at Timas in Singapore.
Hi everyone, my name is Bhagyesh. I manage data quality and stewardship at Citibank for personal banking and wealth management business.
Okay, so a warm welcome to all of you for this panel discussion, and a big round of applause for all the panelists present here and for the moderator, Dr. Niladri Chaudhary. Over to you, Dr. Niladri.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon.
I was just thinking whether it's evening. Okay, so who knows what is the theme of this panel? Theme of the panel?
Hint, it's in the agenda.
The theme of the panel is redefining value delivery with next-gen or new and emerging technology. Okay, we are clear on that?
Yep.
Great. So I'll start off with asking a general question, which I would like all of you to answer. We'll go starting with David and come down this side. The question is, how can new and emerging technologies help organizations to improve value delivery?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think being the only non-technical person on the stage, I'm going to come at things probably from more of a commercial aspect. I think all organisations are looking for a competitive edge within the market, and more so during competitive or contractory times. So we've seen inflation around the world. We've seen organisations respond to that. We've seen headcount reductions around the world. And as a consequence, a lot of organisations turn to technologies to help them for that competitive advantage. Now, with GitLab, we can help organisations with that competitive edge through our technologies through three ways that we focus on. One is through operational efficiencies. So for those of you who are unaware, GitLab provides a complete DevOps solution delivered as a single application. So we're able to help organisations be more efficient, so provide operational efficiencies. That's the first way. The second way we help organisations is to speed up their software delivery, so provide better products faster. So we provide better products not at the cost of a lower product or output, but we can actually help organisations through that streamlined process to help them to increase their operational efficiency by providing better product faster to market and be more productive in what is a very challenging market. The third way we help organisations that we focus upon is to help organisations to meet their security and compliance requirements. A lot of organisations out there today have their own internal requirements. Security is always at the heart of everything that we do. And at the same time, you may have certain market verticals like banks, certain financial sector. We're seeing more and more now in government and in healthcare have regulatory requirements, and we can help organisations to meet those needs. So they're the three ways that we can help organisations deliver a more better product and delivery out to the market.
Thanks. For Kavita, I would just change the question a little bit, because you are coming from the product side, and which is used by developers. So I would say, how can new and emerging technologies help developers or organizations to improve developer experience?
So I think developer experience is very tied closely to developer efficiency, and how are we able to enable the developer community be more productive. And just this morning we saw a lot of sessions focusing around how to automate simple tasks, bring out the creativity in developers. And all of this is done by enabling the developers or giving them the right environment and the right tool set for them to be able to get the value for the organization, derive the value through the tool set that they use. But I don't think it's a game of tool set and technology alone. I think it's a very fundamental shift in terms of process, structure, and how we are leveraging technology in the right way, which is where, for me, value engineering, value stream is coming out of that, which is a great culmination of technology, tools, and processes coming together. At the same time, I would say that speed, security, and efficiency is something that we cannot ignore. So all of this has to come together, and whether we like it or not, the center of it is the developer. I just want to add one more point to it. Earlier in the day, I met with a bunch of very smart people here, and they asked me, why do we only talk about developers? Okay, there are so many roles in this, but we tend to generalize it and call them all developers. And I think that was a very great point, because when you double click on it, it is not just a developer that we are talking about. We're talking about developers, DevOps engineers, people in the security teams, the operations teams, so many people who work together, but ultimately these are the different people who we touch through our technology and processes.
Thank you. So coming to Meghashyam and Ronak, both of you are hands-on on the technology side. So my question would be, how do you, from the technology side, see that, or what you expect and what you're getting in terms of what you see you would like to expect to help you out in your work from the new technology?
Okay, I think it's a very deliberate and a detailed question, so probably I'll try to answer this in a few points that I understand about the emerging technologies. So just around 2 months back, I was just speaking to my family about buying a condenser mic. I just wanted to set up a musical studio at home. And the next day, when I log in into Amazon, it's already showing me all the condenser mics. That is when I, came to know that, okay, the Google Dot or the Amazon Echo are actually listening to your conversations at home. So that's how I can see the emerging technologies are revolutionizing the way businesses reach to the customers. That is the way they tailor their offerings to the individual behaviors, individual conversations, and all that. So 2 to 3 years back, I started my journey in engineering, right? That is through a journey of DevSecOps. So we were about to bring in some nice technologies to help the developers again. And one of my customers called me and said, so I am a tech freak. I love doing difficult things, technical challenges and everything. So one of my customers called me and said, Shyam, hold on. I know you like engineering, you like technology, but you know what? Engineering or embracing the emerging technology is not a technical issue. It is how you bring the people together, how you build the culture together to embrace the technology. So probably it took me 3 to 4 months to even understand that, and probably then onwards, I really got that point. I think when we try to introduce a technology into an organization, we need to take care of multiple things, and that's what I learned. You have to keep the developers happy. You have to introduce them to the sandboxes and playgrounds to familiarize them, to make them understand what's coming in. Let's say ChatGPT, okay? So we all have those fears. I think everybody, right? Is ChatGPT going to swallow my chair or swallow me? Is Ansible going to automate everything? So what am I going to do as an operations expert? Okay, there is Terraform, there is Rundeck, there are so many technologies, right? So I think the core part of interest that we need to do when we introduce the technology is to walk the talk, navigate the developers with what is new in what they are not doing, what they are doing and it's going to continue, and what's going to disrupt them. If we can do that and navigate them into embracing the new technology, there'll be no disruptions to what they are doing. They will get a lot of confidence. We will be able to remove the fear. And obviously, the applications that we are going to deliver, we will continue to deliver in the same way. That's how we embrace the emerging technologies, in my view.
Okay, to what Shyam mentioned, right? Whenever we are talking about any technology, whenever Kavita mentioned, whenever we are talking about any experience is about reducing complexity, not increasing it. I think that's the same thing which is expected from any technology which an organization is trying to use. It's about the experience, whether it is developer experience, whether it is security experience, platform experience. When people try to use a certain technology, they should really evaluate if it will help them to reduce the complexity or it will actually increase the technical debt for them in the longer run. So when using a technology, it's really important to evaluate properly, bringing in right people, bringing in people who are actually users of the technology. Like one thing which I've seen across many organizations is there is a silo. Even when people talk about DevOps and SRE and all the practices, one thing which is missing is communication. So people don't take feedback, people don't communicate to actually see that, okay, if this is even being used in the right way, what I am seeing. So it's like building something like a Ferrari for someone who really needs the family car. So I think that's really important at least from my perspective.
Thank you, Ronak. So going to Bhagyesh, as he's from the business side, so my question to him is, how do you see, or what is the expectation of the business from the technology side? Because what I feel is when we are looking at a technology coming into any organization, there are multiple stakeholders. So we already have seen product, we have seen the development side. Now let us ask the business side, what is their expectation in terms of value creation that you would like to see from newer technologies?
Sure, thanks for the question. I think it's interesting to hear the thoughts already. And I probably will start with David's thought where David talked about the value, right? And generally when we look at, or I look at things from my role perspective, I tend to look at value from a value prevention or value creation point of view, right? And then particularly my role is about data management, stewardship and all, which is literally in the middle of everything, right? So you talk about platforms, data platforms are in part of it, users are part of it, operations are part of it, business is part of it. So when we look at it, the prevention and creation, we literally talk about the defense and offensive mechanisms around it and what value do we want to create, which then takes us to a use case kind of discussion, right? Because very often a lot of discussions happen and very rarely a large scale adoption really happens. So I think we got to balance it through the use case lens and the value that we truly want to deliver. Is it going to be a prevention like the security and privacy that David talked about versus a analytical platform where we want to launch a new campaign for a credit card, for example. So I think those are the areas. The third area in which I think Kavita also touched and both of you also touched is efficiencies. And now efficiencies could be on the three layers: people, process, and platforms. So we kind of look at the efficiency lens into those three different buckets. Of course, platform could mean our storage, developer efficiencies, and so on and so forth. Processes are just removing the waste from it, and people, of course, keeping the talent and developing the talent towards the strategy we have in terms of both the technology platform as well. I think that's basically multiple lenses to it. There is no single answer in a way.
Thanks, Vagesh. Good to have that feedback from the business side. And you know, Ronak and Megasham, what to expect, and also the product people. I think a couple of points which came up in some of your talks was about the compliance and security aspect. And I think that is one area which is becoming a more prominent to start focusing on. So this is a question to Kavita, Megasham, and Ronak, more technical in terms, is to, Kavita, to you first, as a product vendor, as a product creator, how are you ensuring to help the organization, to help the developers to make their systems more resilient in terms of security?
So when you think of security, it's no more just the CISO organization's job. It becomes every person in the team to take care of security, whether you touch a code, whether you're creating, doing testing, or doing QA or any other kind of automation. And now when we think about a DevOps end-to-end platform, from JFrog's perspective, we are thinking about security around binaries, because that's really what gets exchanged as the main currency when you think about the process from code to release. And when you think about the journey of binaries, it's very important to understand that today the attackers are thinking like developers. Okay, their strategy is to trace the journey back to say, okay, how is this code written? What can I attack? What secrets can I detect? And therefore, how do I break into the system? To make sure that these things are caught early on, it becomes imperative for us to put different checkpoints at different stages of this binary management process. And this is how you enable, you make sure that your developers are taking decisions in a more responsible way. For example, one of the newest products that we released, which is called Curation, acts like a gate. It makes sure that whatever enters your organization in terms of packages or open source technologies or anything else that you're trying to download goes through a bunch of security policies which you define as an organization. And that way you're making your developers more responsible to make sure that they are only bringing those things in which already have, if I may, a security stamp which you've kind of passed as an organization policy. So I think increasingly when I look at responsibility of product companies, we need to start delivering security at every step of the tool, purely because we want to give the developer the experience and the freedom to do what they do best, which is to develop code, to do the testing and the automation part of it, so that things like security is taken care of at the platform level. And this is where, linking back to what I said in terms of process and structure is very important when you think about the overall pipeline.
Sure. Thanks, Kavita. So, Ronak and Megasham, the question is simple, that from the development point of view, what kind of support do you expect in terms of security and GRC from any new technology, any new product that you would start wanting to use?
Yeah, thank you, Neeladri, for that question. So probably I'll define from a developer point of view what's the length and breadth of the security interventions that we see on a daily basis. Right from the moment you start coding in the IDE, there are linting tools and other platforms which show you the security vulnerabilities and the bug smells and so on. You commit the code into the code repository, there is something scanning your code, scanning your infrastructure, YAML files, scanning your Docker files, again highlighting the vulnerabilities. You have a static code scan, like a SodaCube, again showing something new. Then probably the next stage is assuming that you have container-based workloads. You have a Docker image scan. When you are building the images, again, it's getting scanned. So what I'm trying to say is, then of course, assuming you have a container applications again, once you deploy these applications, again, you have a runtime scan going on. So what's happening is, there are overwhelming number of vulnerabilities which developer has to live with. And the support from security, like what Kavita was saying earlier, it's everyone's responsibility. At the same time, developers also need to focus on coding and probably spend less effort on remediating these security interventions and the vulnerabilities highlighted. So what we expect from here, so probably I'll tell you one example of it. So there's one platform which actually scans the entire code the moment I store it in the code repository, and it is multifaceted, right? And it automatically shows me the pull request that I have to raise, which is called auto PR, which automatically fixes those vulnerabilities as well. So this is one thing which can make my life very, very easy, right? So I need not actually start looking out the security databases in the world to check what should be my Docker version that I have to fix, what should be my next package version that I have to introduce, and how it is going to break. The moment I say I just enable this auto PRs, it will fix, and because the pull request is already merged, it will run the pipeline, and it's going to tell me whether I'm making it or breaking it. So this is one example of those interventions. Apart from this, I would also think that there should be security experts in the team, which typically in every organization, but many organizations do not have that kind of team who can do a POC exploit, who can try to actually defend the developer in terms of exploiting the vulnerability and telling you that, okay, this is not going to break your system. It's a false positive or true positive. But we often find that in organizations, we only have teams who are mostly relying on the platforms to scan and provide the reports, but not the teams who can actually exploit and prove whether it's a vulnerability or not. Yeah.
Thanks. Ronak?
Okay, to add on to that, right, I mean, a little bit strike tracking when we talk about what are we expecting from a certain technology, I mean, even before that, like the thing is, okay, what we are expecting from our people. So when we talk about like all the different tools which are being used, there are like plenty of tools which can help you to scan, give you a list of vulnerabilities and all. At times people expect, if there is not proper enablement, people expect that if there are, I don't know, like 10,000 vulnerabilities in a certain thing, they expect everything to be fixed. But what they don't account for is whether a certain vulnerability or a certain security like flag is even relevant to your application, because there is a mismatch between the application awareness and tools. So even though there is a certain flag, it may not impact your applications because probably you're not even using that, but it's a part of maybe a third-party library or it's part of a different code. So I think that enablement of or collaboration between security teams and the developer is really important, not one way that, okay, you have these vulnerabilities, fix all of it, otherwise you can't deploy your application. So from a product perspective, from a technology perspective, it's important for those alerts, those flags to be more relevant instead of like false positive. Yeah.
Sure, thanks. So we have the product and the development. I mean, we never sequenced this like this, but somehow we have a nice value stream here. We have the business, we have the development, and then we have the product, all in that sequence. So it's nice to have this, which was not specifically intended when we sat down. I was actually trying to sit that side. So the question to the business side, to Bhagyesh, is that when new technology is being brought in from a business point of view, how do you evaluate in terms of the security, governance, risk and compliance when new technology is brought into the, and you are in a financial sector, so obviously there's a lot more regulations to follow.
First of all, I think, again, I just want to talk about what Ronak just said, and from my understanding, and I completely agree with your point, that most of the time it is about a setting not being done properly or somebody forgetting something type of scenario, as opposed to a true technical limitation that somebody has breached in. So I think 70% of the time that's the case we actually see. Then that thought brings, so how to solve that 70% of the problem, because the 30% is the hardest, and that's where the product companies and I think the tech guys are already busy working on. So the 70% is, then it comes to the training culture, bringing the awareness, and that brings the question that what do we do when we bring in something completely new? And the answer lies in my previous sort of statement, where you build frameworks, so you understand what you have, how does it work, where do the new thing will fit in. You have the risk frameworks around it, both at the technology level. You also have a product level frameworks around it. Then you have a risk and control organization that's simply looking at overall picture, and within that you have multiple types of risks to look at as well. So I think these are large frameworks, and of course, coming from a large organization, I can talk about it a lot, and that's probably a lot easier in a larger organization to implement at scale. Smaller organizations have a very different challenge. So it's the scale as well. I would say from an organizational point of view, I also have an experience of dealing with the charity, and we have absolutely no tools and technology there. So it's a very different ball game out there. Coming to, if I were to say single or couple of key points when we look at completely new technology that we don't have, going back to the use case, what value does it truly bring? And then evaluate it against the risk of having it as well, right? So I think it's the value versus risk proposition, or cost versus benefit proposition, and scenario playing as well, that if it were to go really, really wrong, what is the value at risk? For example, if it is a payment system and you want to bring in a new technology, it's very, very, very risky, right? Versus a app feature change for a new offer on credit card, that's probably okay. So that's kind of the lens you can apply.
Thanks. I would like to have some more questions on this aspect itself. We heard about what the expectations are. Extending it to the situation that we have a lot of challenges in terms of the open sources being used. Various products are getting used. How do you ensure, or what do we want to see in products, in new technology, in terms of ensuring that the supply chain kind of vulnerabilities are avoided? I mean, I know that it cannot be stopped per se, but how can it be reduced? How can it be taken care of? The supply chain kind of vulnerabilities in any new technology that we are bringing in. So I'll start with Kavita.
So there's no silver bullet to it, and I want to just set the expectations right here, because I think security is an evolving space. We saw the attacks happening to code, which is moved to binaries, and it's taking different shape and form. As technology also matures and new things are coming into the picture. But I think what we can do from an open source perspective, and we have tons of companies now using open source technologies. It's no more just, we used to think that, hey, only startups use open source, but now we have enterprises who use open source libraries, snippets of code, and there are some beautiful pieces of code out there which everyone wants to use. I think this has now become about control and managing it better, because the open source world is a dinosaur, if I may say so, right? There's a lot happening out there. How are you able to control this? How are you able to manage this better? Because you cannot deprive your developers from open source libraries and code. You have to give them the freedom to choose things that they want to, adapt from the open source world. At the same time, as a responsible enterprise who has to deliver secure solutions to your end customer, you need to have the ability to control, monitor, and manage what's happening in this. And I think this can only be solved through tools, this can be solved through process, and this can be solved by understanding how do you introduce security checks and balances in different parts of the supply chain. And this, to his point, cannot come at the cost of interrupting the productivity of a developer. And I think that's a conscious choice product companies such as ourselves have to take, because if you don't make that choice, then a developer will never want to use your product. And to Ronak's point as well, security also comes with a tag to it. Not every red flag that you see out there is important for you to resolve, because maybe it's not even relevant, and the context of things have to also be understood.
Thanks. Megha.
Again, a very good question, Niladri. So, I think Kavita almost covered everything, but I would probably add to what Kavita has covered. First and foremost, probably secure the environment of developers, how they are using, how they are downloading packages, how they are using open source Docker images, open source binaries. So probably one best option is JFrog. Yeah. So because it will not only give that freedom to allow your developers to download what they want, but at the same time have the checks and controls, have the security configuration in place, have the security thresholds defined in place, and all this technology help along with process help. Let's say if it is reusing the artifacts, reusability. So one of my developer team are also sitting here. So we have a huge repository, let's say, of all the base Docker images that we use. So everyone starts using that. So there's no need for everyone to reinvent the wheel, or it reduces a lot of effort when we embrace reusability, especially when we have so many security vulnerabilities around overwhelming our development work. So I think it's the process, like what Kavita said, and technology enablers in a secure environment with proper checks and controls. Yeah, we are there.
Thanks.
I think in addition to that, some of the frameworks might help here, right? Like how you are establishing a baseline that, okay, like what all open source projects we can use, because there are like a lot of open source projects which were created 10 years back, they are not actively maintained and people are still using them. So I think that like bringing that visibility, having maybe an open source office which can help you to evaluate the risk and benefits of certain open source projects is also important. Another thing which like a lot of organizations don't talk about is contributing back. So when you are using open source project, it's also your responsibility to contribute back. If you see there's an exploit, there is an open source, there is a vulnerability in a project. So I think those are a couple of points which, along with tools and like check and balances, can help you to improve your overall security posture.
Sure. Thanks. So let me go to Bhagyesh first, and then I'll come to David on this question. So we have heard about what the developers are saying, what the development-related product creators are saying. So now we come to, again, the business side of it and also to the product side. As to what all do you see, or first to Bhagyesh, what all are you as a stakeholder, as in business as a stakeholder, would like to use for evaluating a new technology? I mean, typically we see that, okay, technology people, new technology comes, we are always wanting to get into that, jump into it, try it out. but how do you ensure that it aligns to the organization's strategy?
So I think that's a very broad question. And before I start on that, I must say that whatever you guys are talking about, I can relate to it, starting my own career as a technologist long back. So it's coming back. A lot of things are coming back in my head. So thank you for that. I think it's how do we, if the question is when something new is coming, how do we evaluate, should we take it or not?
From the business point of view.
I understand, but again, it's a very broad question because not all products are the same, for example, right? So a payment system tool technology is a very different technology from, let's say, Confluence, which is more about collaboration and all, right? So I think the first question itself to answer is, what is it that we are trying to solve, right? And then go about finding what are the options available, which then brings us to the various tools and technologies available. And then look at the current stack, what we have in that space, what is that additional value it brings. But then there are, more often nowadays than before, there are completely new technologies that were not even there. So, and then no conversation these days go without talking about ChatGPT or large language models, for example, right? And that's a big disruption that has happened in the last 6 to 8 months. Now, that's a completely different way for us to even look at it because we have no framework to evaluate it yet, right? And we have already seen people who have gone ahead and started adopting it have had issues. There were Samsung data leak and all that kind of stuff. So, and within a bank, those kind of risks are almost impossible to take because you could literally bring the bank down from a regulatory point of view and fines point of view. So security is at most at the top priority, and then comes the value add that the technology brings, and the use case itself that it is trying to solve. So it's about, most of the time it is the incremental benefit versus the incremental risk. Very rarely it is absolutely new from a evaluation point of view.
Okay, thanks. So I would like you to address the other side in terms of that. What do you see with your customers as to what are they expecting to evaluate when you are bringing a new technology to them?
Yeah. So I think it comes back to, the business type. You mentioned about there's different products out there, but there's also different businesses and they have different requirements and different needs. So it's about looking at defining the business, what the business needs, what are they trying to achieve. Certain organisations are going to have a much higher need for security. Again, we look at financial institutions opposed to maybe SMEs. So you've really got to define the actual business and what they're trying to achieve, and then go into an evaluation mode. We do a lot of POCs with organisations. We do a lot of head-to-head. There's going to be a lot of stakeholders in the organisation. What are they looking for? Developers are going to have a lot of wants, but the organisation's only going to want to meet the needs because there's going to be cost constraints. So how is that technology also going to fit into the current environment? So is it going to meet the current environment? Is it going to be scalable? The financial the CFOs within the organisation are going to be wanting about costs. So there's always going to be competing interests within an organisation, different stakeholders wanting different things. So I think it's a matter of looking at the stakeholders, looking at the particular organisation you're looking at. As I said, different organisations are going to have different wants and different needs, and then working through that and then evaluating, which one's going to meet our requirements.
Thank you. Yeah.
So I would probably agree to both what Bhagesh and David was covering, but I'll probably address it from a developer's point of view. If you're planning to introduce a new tool or technology into an organization, let developers scan it, scan the market, evaluate it. If they are happy, business will be happy. Yeah.
Thanks. So I would like to extend a little bit more on this aspect. So the kind of point that I'm trying to ask, I'm not asking any specific person. Any of you can take it up. It's an open question to all of you. So for example, a company gets into LLM kind of product or technology they want to use. where they are a very ethical company, a very regulated company, and then after taking the technology, you want to fire the whole ethics committee, is one way of looking at it. The other way of looking at it is that how do the technology help me in carrying on with the kind of vision that the organization has, the way that it wants to operate, the way that it wants to create value for its customers, whether the technology enables that, makes it more easier, or makes it more difficult, right? So keeping these things in mind, how do you think we bring as an ecosystem to help that organization to go forward?
Okay, I'll just add one point here. Like I had a discussion with one of my manager a few years back. Like he told a very important thing, which is about value and beliefs. So when in any organization, any technology, like it's never about technology, it's always about people and value. So when we talk about ethics or using any particular technology, it's actually the values which is driving your organization, not the other way around. So if your values are right in your organization, then whatever you are doing, whatever you are trying to build, you will stick to them. But if you try to do the other way, that, okay, like this is technology, let's just use it, like whatever we can, then that's not the value you have built.
Okay, thanks. Anybody else wants to take up?
I think, the value derived by every individual role played by an enterprise is different. And collectively, it becomes a responsibility of these people involved in various roles and how they tap into the tool to give the value back. But I understand your underlying theme of, hey, there is an ethical way of doing it, there is a sustainable way of doing it, and are we as an organization driving towards that as the main goal, if I understand your question right. And I think, to be very honest, it's not being consciously driven, but the awareness of it, the ability to choose tools, and that's where I feel the Ethics and Sustainability Committee, because they look at it from that lens, whenever they look at evaluation or when they pick a tool or a process or anything else, it could be outside of technology as well. And I think that awareness is now getting built up slowly, even with product companies, even with, cloud providers who started tracking how much power, water they're consuming when they're, setting up data centers and running it. So I would say that we are far away from consciously driving it, but the awareness is there, and I think the journey has begun.
Thank you. Anybody else wants to take it?
It's a very interesting topic, and I touch upon the point of sustainability, specifically in my role in the data space. What we see, and more often than not, is there is a lot of data that is already there, and there has always been a race of collecting more in different shapes and forms. And once you have the data, you can build the right product because you will do the analytics on it, and all of that kind of debates and discussions. But what also happens in that is a lot of data never gets used. We don't even know what is the data that we truly have and what is it used for. And that brings the whole sustainability problem, where now we are storing it, whatever the regulation says, 7 years, blah, blah, blah. It keeps on increasing the cost. Environmental impact, of course, from a data center point of view, and so on and so forth. So I think the whole sustainability piece in the technology space is becoming more and more and more important. It was not so much before, because the complexity of tech is increasing, the amount of data. It's become cheaper, but of course there are all these unintended outcomes that we are now experiencing as a group, society, or community. And I think that's probably one area that I would like to leave everybody to think more about as well.
Thank you. We have a couple of minutes. So is there any question from the audience? Yes.
This is a very esteemed panel, so I'd love to get their opinion. What kind of skills do you think we are lacking in the industry today? And maybe if there is like a new person entering the workforce, right? What kind of skills should they be preparing for?
I mean, for me, two important things are there: curiosity and proactiveness. So curiosity to learn, because the pace at which technologies are changing, like technologies, what is relevant today might not be relevant tomorrow. But if the person is curious, then he won't just stick to a technology, but he'll try to learn. And then proactiveness is more on like taking the initiatives, like raising the hand if there is a problem, instead of just like sitting and then expecting someone else to solve.
Yeah, so I think Manjunath, you'll be more aware of this. Every 3 months, we have a new tool or technology in the market, right? I totally agree with what Ronak was saying, but probably if there's a new person who want to, have the command in the field, so I think one is the conceptual understanding is what is important. It doesn't matter which tool, which technology we are using. As long as the concepts are clear, I think a tool is just an enabler to do that. That's the first point. Probably the second point might not be a skill, but probably with the complex architectures that we derive in the cloud world, I think keeping things simple and sticking to simplicity is the key factor to thrive in the field.
Thanks. I think we had a very interesting session, and my key takeaway here is that we need the entire ecosystem to work together. So whether it's new technology or not, everybody has to be looked at, everybody has to contribute, and everybody has to get a benefit out of it. And the other point which I would also take from is, which also earlier Manjunath Bhatt had mentioned in his keynote about the Bain Bridges concept, we cannot forget the grassroots. We have to, as a software engineer, we have to know software engineering. We cannot forget that. And that's something which we need to carry on with us, whatever new technology, whatever new things that we take. With this, I would like to thank the panel here, and thanks the audience for hearing us. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, so that was a very insightful, interesting discussion, and the questions were sometimes simple, sometimes twisted, and all the eminent members have answered the unanswered questions in our mind, and we have known a lot of unknowns that were not known to us. So a big round of applause for all of them, and thanks to all of them. Thank you so much. And we would request Dr. Niladri to be felicitating all the panelists. So thank you all so much. And I think after the end of the discussion, we have actually redefined the value delivery. We have redefined the value systems. And I must also appreciate that in this track, this was one of the most interesting discussions that the audience have enjoyed. Thank you all so much. We'll have a tea break for 15 minutes as planned before, and after which we will have 2 more speakers on the tracks, very interesting ones, renowned speakers. So please come back with a tea or coffee and relax, sit back and enjoy the next speakers' sessions. Thank you.